Hi, I'm here today with Erin Stelmach.
Correct.
Oh, I got
Yes,
that.
thank
And
you.
John Person, who's a little... Erin, your title is Media Relations and Community Outreach, and John is the Director of Operations.
Yes.
Right? Great. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
And talking about Veterans, Inc.
Well, thanks for having us.
Headquartered in Worcester still.
Just down on Grove Street,
Down on Grove
69
Street,
Grove Street.
but serving all of New England, which I did
Correct.
not know till we started talking about and preparing for the program and how many different types of programs you run.
Yep.
So do me a favor, Erin, maybe a little overview of what you do, and then we can
Absolutely.
get into some of the specifics.
I'd love to. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about all of this. A lot of people in the area may be familiar with our 69 Grove Street headquarters that you mentioned.
In Worcester.
In Worcester, yeah. But they don't realize how much more we offer. Right in that one location, we can have up to 85 veterans staying for one night up to 2 years. We have food services program there where our veterans are served 3 meals a day, 2 of them hot. We also run a food pantry out of that location the third Thursday of every month. It's a really critical resource for many veterans and their families. And we run many events there as well. But that's just a little bit of what Veterans Inc. is. We are so much more. We have so many programs that we offer. And as you mentioned, we're in all 6 New England states.
So service-wise, you mentioned that you do housing. So let's talk about housing
Well, our
first.
transitional housing programs are a place for a veteran. We deal with male veterans and female veterans and their family, their children. So those locations are where they can stay with us for up to 2 years. And then we help them try to transition into some other housing that would be appropriate for them. And John, I think you were going to touch upon that.
Yeah, I think it's really important when you look at the transitional housing clients that we're working with right now and providing the wraparound services, we work closely with the VA. Now, we're not the VA, we work very closely with the VA on ensuring that we provide housing and supportive services. So when you have an individual in transitional housing, they are looking to get into permanent housing, and how do they do that? You talk about case management, we talk about self-determination, you talk
Let me
about...
interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
Transitional housing, veterans with what issues? Aside from the fact that housing for anybody but wealthy people is getting to be a real problem throughout Massachusetts, particularly Central Mass and Eastern Mass, who comes to you with a need for transitional housing and wraparound services? Explain what that is, because
Sure.
you and I would know what that is, but I think a lot of people
It's
watching
myriad
this.
challenges. I mean, you look at an individual who's coming literally off the street, who may have relapsed from alcohol or drugs, may have medical or mental health issues, has no job, has no form of income. They have very little. And so those are the challenges that we work with when a client comes into Veterans Inc. And we use transitional housing as a way for that individual to look at those challenges and address them through case management, and now starting to get into the more deeper aspects of why they are where they are and how we can get them out to where they need to be.
Okay.
And I think that's where we come down to, it's the foundation of the housing, the employment or income, and then self-determination. And as Erin was, go ahead, Erin.
Oh, no, and I think that's really what sets Veterans Inc. apart from many other organizations, is we're not just giving them the place to stay. They need that, but all the other things that they need, and John had mentioned the employment. We have an employment and training services. We have a department that helps post 9/11 veterans find very great jobs, and that's through our Call of Duty endowment. The video game Call of Duty provided us with that with an endowment.
Finally, a good use for a video game.
Exactly,
I
it's
didn't say
true.
that.
Yes,
They've been
it
great.
really
Love
is.
that.
They really have been great. But that's something that we do. So we're making sure that they're not just having a place to stay, but we're making it so that we figure out why were they in the situation that they're in. Do they need some mental health counseling? Do they need some legal counseling? Sometimes veterans come to us, I hear this quite often, they come to us with absolutely nothing. They don't have necessary documents that they need, and we help them get those kinds of things as well. So
And I think it's
Lots
important to
going on.
note that each client, it's not just a cookie cutter approach. Yes, we have all these different services. It's the individual service plan that we put together with each and every client. And we'll spend an hour to 2 hours with our assessment and treatment manager, with our case manager, talking through what are the needs, what have you dealt with, and what do we need to do to help you move forward. And I think that's one of the most important times that we can spend with an individual so we can individualize their care. They may not have a history of substance abuse, but they are dealing with something else in the mental health field. They need that job, and they just did not have the resources to find that job. Things have changed over the last probably 10 years or so since we saw the VA fund more on the permanent housing level. We've been fortunate to have what's called SSVF, Supportive Service for Veteran Families. That allows for a case management team that can be out in the field and working within our own facilities to work with a client that may not have had the resources to get into permanent housing, but now able to provide temporary financial assistance, case management, working with a budget so we can get them back out into permanent housing quicker. Now, does quicker mean let's hurry up and get them into permanent housing? No, it's those resources that we need to get them into permanent housing we'll make sure we take care of, but there's also those other needs that we want to make sure we take care of, the employment side, and also the medical and mental health side. So everything kind of comes full gamut, but the individualized approach is what's really key for us.
And you're dealing with veterans and their families,
Correct.
so you're providing support and help for even children of veterans.
Absolutely.
And that has to be, it boggles the mind, but veterans, people in the service don't get paid extraordinarily well, and then when they're done with their service, thanks for showing up, and sometimes they're left with not even skills.
I'm going to steal a line from our president, Vincent Peroni, who is a veteran himself, lieutenant colonel who's retired from the Air Force. And he said, the men and women who sign up to serve our country, they know they may not come back because they may not survive. They may come back injured, but they never expect that they're going to come home and find themselves homeless. So none of the veterans that come to us in any situation ever would foresee that they would need our services. So I think it's kind of important to know, like, how do they come to us all different ways, but none of them ever thought that they were going to need us. But we're glad that we're there to help them when they need us.
Sure, and that makes a great deal of sense. And homelessness is becoming more of a problem in spite of some of the good news or supposed good news that gets propagated. It's becoming more of a problem for a different group of people. It's people with mental health issues and other issues like that. But it's also just people who don't have enough money to survive and get housing in this part of the world. And that becomes more a problem. Is it a bit more of a problem for women veterans than men, do you think, or do you notice any different?
I don't know for sure if it...
I don't think there's as many services available necessarily. And
that would be my guess.
That we're really, we've been fortunate. We've had a program for women and children available at one of our locations, so that's been a big help. All of the services that we offer as an agency are available across the board, so we make sure that no matter who it is that we're coming across, we want to make sure we're there for them.
I think that's important because I get a sense that having worked or volunteered with agencies that women in certain circumstances aren't thought of as being in that circumstance. And a woman vet wouldn't, there's no easy place to put, box to
so
put.
we recognize that. In fact, we were the first in the nation to have a female veteran facility for female veterans and their dependent children.
Oh, that's
So
terrific.
we're very proud of
There are
that.
very few facilities for housing, particularly if they have a substance abuse issue on top of that. There are very few facilities for women compared to men. How do people end up coming to you for your services? Where do you get referrals, or how do?
It all depends. I mean, there's a variety of ways that individuals can either self-refer or get referred. So the VA has been a large referral source for us. It could be other providers that, like a veteran service officer in the community may come across a veteran who's in need of assistance, so they will connect with our agency. So there's a variety of ways. I mean, through our website, through our calling into our 1-800 number.
And I would guess that's part of both of your jobs, yours in particular, is maybe connecting connecting with other agencies in
Exactly.
particular.
Absolutely.
And just making sure that everybody knows who we are, what we do, and that we're there. So we've had people literally just walk in the door and say, I need help. We've
I
had
heard of
people,
you and
Yeah, we've
need
had
help.
people pull up out front and bring their relatives and say, this person needs some help. But yeah, we've had many people walk in and just say, I need help. But we have a wonderful outreach team too that goes out and
Sure.
Absolutely.
We
It's on
need
the
to do both. And I mean, and the outreach team actually ends up, that's how people learn about you and then they go.
yes.
So you've got housing in this area and throughout New England? Is
Correct.
that accurate?
Yeah.
So we have housing in Lewiston, Maine, in Bradford, Vermont, down in New Britain, Connecticut, and then we have our central Massachusetts locations. But we also have offices in Providence, Rhode Island, and Concord, New Hampshire, and Springfield, Massachusetts. So we connect everywhere throughout New England.
How many beds total, or if you had to,
From
if
a
you had to make
transitional
guess?
housing standpoint, we have 186 total transitional housing beds.
And then you do permanent housing.
So
as
permanent
well.
housing, yes. So we have that supportive service for veteran and family program. So we don't necessarily have permanent housing locations per se, but we have our case management team who's not only talking to our transitional housing clients, but also to our clients who may have just called and are looking for help, may be evicted from their location. So what we do, we'll find another permanent housing location. We're part of landlord associations. We are connected with the continuums of care. We're finding every possible permanent housing location that's out there and making the connection. I always like saying making the connection
sure.
between the client, their needs, and the solution down the road. So that's really the key from the permanent housing standpoint. It's making the connection between the client and that actual final destination.
Okay. So then one of the other steps, substance abuse and mental health issues. I hate mental health. Physiological health issues, I guess, whatever.
Yeah, and I have to credit Dennis Leary, our executive director, incredible visionary, and what he did 10 years ago to see how important it was to understand mental health and understand the field of substance abuse recovery and how many individuals had been unfortunately dying from overdose through drugs and namely opioids. You're talking your prescription medications like oxycodone, you're talking about your illegal substances like heroin and fentanyl, unfortunately. And you look at 2017 number came out that 70,000 individuals across the country had died by drug overdose, but 70% through opioid overdose.
700,000, right?
70,000 in 1 year.
70,000.
700,000
year.
from 1999
All
through
right.
2017, but 70,000 in 1 year, which is important. And why is it important from the veteran standpoint? I saw another statistic which is really important, that 60% of military personnel who had been deployed are coming back with chronic pain. 50% of older veterans are having chronic pain. Well, how do you deal with chronic pain?
Sure.
You might go to the VA, you might go to your doctor, and what might you be prescribed? Painkillers. And unfortunately, we're seeing more and more individuals get addicted to these painkillers.
It's a tough balance, isn't it? Because you do need to relieve somebody's pain.
And that's where we start
And
talking
where
about
do you-
where are some of the more holistic ways that we can be able to approach this. But what Dennis and Veterans Inc. have been able to do over at the Independence Hall Treatment Center in Shrewsbury is create a treatment center, inpatient and outpatient, for those who have recently relapsed or were considering using again but wanted more help. And we do this in two different ways, and eventually three. One, we have an inpatient clinical stabilization services program that's up to 28 days. And what that allows an individual to do, if they had just been in detox and now need some additional help, they will go into this CSS program and work with a substance abuse counselor, work with a case manager, work with a team in group counseling sessions, individualized counseling sessions, talk about life skills, coping skills, and to get you back into that recovery mode. Now, does that necessarily mean after 28 days you are ready to get back out in the community and go into housing? Maybe, probably not. And we have to start talking about the next steps in discharge planning. We also have an outpatient program, and she's unbelievable. Ronnie, and shout out to Ronnie. She's fantastic. She is our counselor who does intensive outpatient. And it's a small group, and it's 10 days, 2 weeks, outpatient, where individuals will go into this program and work one-on-one and in a group session with Ronnie to continually talk about what are some of the next steps that you need to do to get back out in the community again, to feel that you are on that path of recovery. So on top of the intensive aspect of it, there is the one-on-one sessions that Ronnie will also take part in. And so now you have kind of a wide array between the inpatient and outpatient services that allows an individual to continue along their steps. Now, there are many other steps along the way. The continuum is not something that Veterans Inc. has right now, but from a standpoint of where we are, we've come a long ways, and we're finally addressing this. So I have to give Dennis a lot of credit in understanding how important it was to address the substance abuse recovery needs of the community.
And you mentioned community. The program runs clearly for veterans, the major emphasis on veterans, but it's open to people who are not.
That is correct.
Veterans,
and
correct?
it's really important that we mention this, that Veterans Inc. is a provider of veteran services to veterans and their families. But Independence Hall Treatment Center is a program of Veterans Inc. and is able to provide services not only to the veterans within our own program, it could be veterans in the community and the general public.
Okay.
And that's really important for anyone out there that is interested in knowing more about our services, and they know someone who may need help, may need help themselves. We'd like them to be able to
I don't think that
contact
piece
us.
is very well understood, that Independence Hall being a program of. So
Absolutely.
that's important to know.
Absolutely.
And then employment is a major emphasis too. I mean, I wanted to touch on that. We have a few minutes left. I want to touch on that because you get somebody to a certain point where maybe they're able to function in a home of some, but they got to work, got to find a way to afford this. So.
And we have a lot of incredible employers that we work with. We have great relationships with many businesses that want to hire veterans. So we're ready to take them to the next step, and we work on their resumes. We make sure that their skills match the job that they want, or if there's an education that they're searching for, that we get them to that educational institution that they're going to be able to follow up on their studies at. So it's really wonderful to see that a veteran can come to us in such need, and we have so many steps to take them through so that they can continue on their path of having a happy life. It's
Now, how
great.
many people are assisted or have been assisted, if you had a number in your head, in the employment piece?
In the employment piece, I don't know that, but I will say since we started in 1990 as Veterans Inc., we served 85,000 veterans and their family members. That's through all of our programs. You might know more specifically about the employment. I don't have those figures.
I thought it was about 450 jobs that we were able to secure throughout New England overall.
Well, again, it's being able to not just help somebody when they're in the pit, as we used to call it in Stephen ministry, but also be able to give a hand up.
Yep.
And
to keep
let them
going.
be
Yeah.
going.
I think it's so important for us to remember, and for anybody who's looking for help, it's okay. We're here to help. And the individuals who are looking for help, I think there's that stigma that's out there, from the recovery field to the I need help area. It's okay to ask for help.
Well, thank you for coming and sharing some information about Veterans Inc.
Thank you.
People can call or go to the website that's been scrolling along as we've been talking, and go get help. That's
Excellent.
That's
That's what we're here for.
Yep.
great. Well, thank you,
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
and we'll be right back. Hi, I'm here today with Stephanie Ramey, the Executive Director of Discover Central Mass. I use a cheat sheet because I want to get all that correct. And one of our new co-hosts, Stacy Levine-Laley.
Hi.
And great to have you join our crew, and we're going to have fun. And this is going to be fun because we're going to find out a little bit about events that are coming up in Central Mass over November and December in particular. And I appreciate your coming and talking a little bit about your organization and then what that's coming up.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about what Discover Central Mass does, please.
So Discover Central Mass, we are the state designated tourism bureau. We represent the southern central portion of the state. We're one of 16 regional tourism councils. And the organization ultimately has two objectives. So one, we work to bring in meetings, events, and conferences. We work as a liaison between meeting planners and the hotels and function facilities in hopes that we can get people to utilize the hotel space and obviously have an economic impact. And then the second objective is to position the community as a premier place to visit. So it's a place where you bring your friends, your family, you come here for a day trip or hopefully even longer. But we really want to share all of the great assets within the community and things that people can do here.
That's great. That's great.
That's awesome.
So what that you know about is coming up for people to do, or what in general? What are some of the top attractions in Central Mass?
There's so much to do. It's hard to keep up with, and I would say, you know, we've got an ever-evolving event calendar on our website. But once you start to get into November and December, and the weather starts to change, you have a multitude of events, and you know, especially around the wintertime, you've got night lights at Tower Hill, Christmas by Candlelight at Old Sturbridge Village, Festival of Lights on the Worcester Common, which is always a really great family-friendly event. And then it's a great time to utilize and, you know, the attractions that we've got here, such as the Worcester Art Museum, the Historical Museum, or even getting outside and checking out Ski Ward in Shrewsbury. And you know, if you're not a skier like I am not, they've got snow tubing, so there's really something for everyone.
Safer for people like us.
Yeah.
To do that.
So there's always something, you know, exciting to do here for the adventurer or for those who are just trying to learn something new.
Can you tell us a little bit about a couple of the events that you mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say Christmas by Candlelight is an opportunity to really step back in time into a living history museum and really experience, you know, a holiday in a unique way. Really family friendly, beautiful setting, spectacular backdrop. Nightlights is just, I would say, get tickets ahead of time. It tends to sell out. That's in Boylston at Tower Hill Botanic Garden. But just these beautiful domes that are illuminated. It's, you know, it's not necessarily geared towards a particular holiday. It's just an expression of winter and a really nice way to embrace the season. So, you know, the list goes on, and I really encourage people to use this time as, you know, check out the museums. I love Worcester Historical Museum, and it's not necessarily the first one that jumps out, but they've got a great play area for the kids, and it's pretty exciting to see all of the, you know, great inventions and connections to history that we have here in this community.
Sure. And the Festival of Lights.
Yep, Festival of Lights, and I still don't know who's headlining yet. But
Well, Santa is. Excuse me.
Santa, exactly,
Santa.
exactly. That's when the ice rink opens on the Worcester Common Oval, which is, it's just been really nice to see the development downtown, to have the ability to bring your family to go ice skating, to walk across the street and grab, you know, a cup of hot chocolate at Brew on the Grid or at Fuel. And you can really just make a full experience of it. So whether it's Festival of Lights and you've got, you know, the performance and Santa obviously coming and the tree lighting, or you're just making, you know, a weekend day of it, it's a really nice, affordable way to spend time with your family and to check out the new, I call it like the new Worcester. You know, there's so many things happening on a day-to-day basis that we have to kind of put ourselves back in the community and check it out for ourselves.
And then there's, I know Sutton and Millbury both have
Chain of Lights
events.
Yep, so you can hop on a trolley and really support some of the small businesses in the community. Great holiday shopping inspiration, and a really, you know, fun weekend. Valancourt Folk Art, which if you haven't even seen, that in itself is an experience to watch the artists create these beautiful ornate chalkware pieces. They're just spectacular.
And one of the things that we've talked about, the three of us were talking about before we went on air, is looking for information about accessible places and programs that, and that's been one of your interests.
Yeah, it's really important. I mean, obviously there are so many kids today, like 1 in 58 kids is being diagnosed with autism. You have Down syndrome, you have, you know, people who are in wheelchairs or people who are in scooters at this point or need, you know, some kind of mobility assistance or sensory issues, things like that. So, yeah, one of the things that we were talking about prior, obviously, which you know, is, you know, places that do, you know, have like, say, a quiet room for, you know, the day or what have you. So I don't want to put you on the spot
Well, there
if you
are
know any
attractions
or
that
not,
do that,
but
though, correct?
yeah.
I mean, there are attractions, and
Yeah,
we don't
were
have
just
a
saying
list yet.
teaming
but-
up. I think it's definitely important that we start to, you know,
Create
think about
that.
exactly,
Yeah.
because it is important. And I had mentioned to Stacy that I think Worcester Art Museum had launched some type of initiative, but I think it's important as we start to kind of look into the future months how we can partner better with agencies to curate that experience, because everyone, you know, deserves to have a chance to go out with their family and experience and have a good time. And I do think it's very important that we have that information available.
And I guess what I bring it up because I'm hoping that people who are watching this program, who know of or are running events or attractions, destinations that are accessible, or they do have special days that are accessible. Let us know. Let you know.
Oh, absolutely.
Contact one of us through Facebook.
Absolutely.
Because we'd like to promote that.
I
And
100%.
so it's not charity. It's
Yeah.
not.
No,
It's not
absolutely.
charity. We're trying to build you a business. A greater number of people to go visit your business, and if people don't know that, they tend to stay away. I would think from a lot of attractions.
And I think a lot of attractions too, they don't always, they're so busy planning the whole event that sometimes something that's a smaller subset of that can get lost in translation unless there's somebody on staff or somebody from the outside reminding them, hey, the lights can be really bright, so is there a place, can you dim them from this time to this time? Or, can we do it earlier in the day when there aren't as many crowds or things like that? But it can be just tiny tweaks. It doesn't have to be changing the whole event so other people aren't able to experience it the way that, they may have in the past or the way they may want to. It just, kind of lets more people come in, and it really widens, the patronage for the members and things like that by being able to accommodate those kind of needs and things like that. And Stephanie and I were talking about collaborating on this. So feel free. I also run a foundation, the Foundation for Autism Acceptance Worldwide, which is on Facebook. So you can, if you have ideas, either her or I, and we'll definitely be talking about this because we really want to make this year even more spectacular and, moving it into the future. Just as many people as we can include, and we're all about inclusion, not just for autism, for any kind of acceptance.
Definitely.
So we definitely want to make it user-friendly for everyone.
Yeah, and I do think that's super important. I know even recently Blackstone Heritage Corridor had almost like a kayaking experience for those with disabilities. But I think it's important that we figure out how do we take all of that information and put it together. And I think that's a great avenue for DCM to explore. We're a very small team, but we're very open to others stepping in and helping us to curate the experience of Central Mass. I say it over and over again, but tourism through the lens of myself is, very, very narrow. It's all focused around my kids and my own experiences. So we all have our own unique story to tell. And I love when someone will reach out to us and say, you know what, have you thought about focusing on this? I think there's a market for it. And I think it helps for us to add more value to our membership base as well.
A lot of people think that just because, you're reaching out to disability that you automatically have to discount prices and things like that. And that isn't always the case. I mean, if you want to, that's something you choose to do, from your own perspective.
Sure.
But I think a lot of people think, well, if I do that, then I'm opening myself up to having to do this kind of discount or provide this kind of parking and this, that, and the other. So I think sometimes it's just, really educating the public too, that they're, you are in, say, Worcester or Shrewsbury or where have you, and they do have that, parking for people who have the placards or who have the plates and things like that. And it's not going to really be your responsibility to take that on as well. I think sometimes people just get this huge idea in their head that there's just so many different things they're going to have to take care of when, like I was saying before, just a little tiny tweak is enough to bring it around.
I think, educating even our membership base, I think it would be great to even come up with some type of, frequently asked questions or something, and we would be happy to share that to our membership base. I think that would be a great, that would spark a lot of, interest and, maybe incentivize.
So please tell us how people can get in contact with you and find out information about what's going on in Central Mass.
So a few different ways. The first is the website. So it's discovercentralma.org, and that's got everything from our event calendar to great places to go out to eat, articles, inspiration. And then the second would be our new app. It's available for Android and for iPhone. It's Discover Central MA with an exclamation mark in the App Store. And that's really cool because you're able to also GPS and create your own experiences and map it all out. So I would definitely recommend checking that out as well.
Great. Well, we are out of time.
Oh my goodness.
Just like that.
Goes like that.
So we will have to have you come back and talk some more
Definitely.
about Discover Central Mass, and we'll be working together here, having fun. Thank you very much for coming today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Stephanie. It was so nice to meet you.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you. And look at that, we've got a collaborative project.
All
There we go.
Yay.